Hello everyone, in this lesson I'm going to show you from start to finish how you can build your very first one-click Dataverse app. Now it's quite an involved session. The first thing that I'm going to do is show you the training app that we're going to build. So it's an app that's going to help you to take notes about your journey with the Power Platform on Power Apps. So you can take notes with this app. It's really simple. We'll have the ability to use images as well, which is kind of nice. What we're going to do is, once we've looked at the training app, we're then going to have to create ourselves a developer account because we need an environment with a database inside it. So once we've created this developer account, that's going to give us a little environment specific to ourselves. What we can then do is we can then create a database within that environment, and then once we've done that, we can then start building the training notes app. So let's head over to there and take a look at the app. So this is the app that we're going to build. It's really simple, as you can see. It allows us to look at various training notes. Some have got images, some haven't. We can actually navigate out from the app to our learning resource if we so choose. You can see that we can actually search for things. So if I type in platform, then you'll see that it actually filters things down. If we want to create a new item, we simply select the plus and we can start building one. So let's go and see what it's going to take for us to be able to build this really simple app. What we're now going to do is to create a free developer plan to enable us to be able to continue learning the full flexibility of Power Apps, and that will be by being able to use a Dataverse database. In order to do that, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're logged in. We can open a new tab. We can search for Power Apps Developer Plan. Then we can select the free developer plan. Start free. Enter your email address. You may be asked to sign in. Select sign in. Add in your mobile number. You may wish to untick some of these options here, and then select Get Started. And you're now fully signed up for the Power Apps Developer Plan. We can now select Get Started. Choose a country. And then select Accept. There's now been a fundamental change in our environments. If you actually select the environments, then there's a new environment that's been created. It's called Fran Neary's environment. If we move over to the data option here, we can go into the tables. Now that I have created my environment, I'm actually going to navigate to it. So what I need to do is to select the environment and then move to Fran Neary's environment, which is the name of this user. So I'll select Fran Neary's environment, and then on the left hand side, the tables will relate to that environment. So I'm going to select the tables and we're just going to take a quick look at them. In our case, there are a lot of standard tables in here, and we would like to create our own table in order for us to create our 3-screen app. Just imagine it like an Excel sheet with some data in it. So we're going to create a very simple table. Click a new table, and then we're going to call it training. And I noticed that in the primary column, you can actually give the name of the training item. So it could be something like training summary. And then we're going to click save on that. What we're then going to do is we're going to add some columns to this. They're effectively fields of data. And we're going to add a notes field and a URL field and also an image field. And image fields can be helpful to you if you're building your apps, in order to be able to, in the case of a training app, be able to remember what you actually trained yourself in at that time. Now, as you can see here, we actually have only one column of data that we've got here. We can choose the 17 more and show created by, etc., etc., but these ones aren't specifically relevant to the app that we're building. So what we're actually going to do here is we've got a number of ways in which we can add columns. We can actually hit the plus here and add a column in that way, or we can actually go onto the column side of things. So we can go look at what we call the schema of this table, and we can actually see all of those 17 columns that were previously not seen by us. So you can see lots of columns here. It really does depend on how you feel most comfortable. Now, in my case, I'm just going to go and select a new column. I'm going to create a series of columns. I'm going to call this one training. I'm going to just call it notes. It won't be a single line of text. I'm just going to make it a text field, but I need to make sure that it's actually, I'll go for a text area. I could do a text field. I'm going to go with the text area, and I'm going to make sure that on the advanced options, I've got a maximum character count. I'm going to say something like 1,000, which gives you plenty of room to put notes in there. And then I'm going to select save. Once I've done that, I'm also going to create a column for an image column. So I'm going to call it IMG training. And we're going to select it as an image. And they might actually call this one picture. So we'll head to File and then select Image, IMG training. And then I'm going to say it's the primary image. It would only matter if you had multiple images in your table. And I'm going to select save on that. And I'm also going to have a URL to that image, because it's quite helpful to be able to get to the details that you found at that time. So I'm going to click another new column. In fact, let's go back to the training, and we're actually going to add this in a slightly different way. So I'm going to hit the plus on there, and I'm going to call this URL training. And what we're going to do is the format of that needs to be that it is a URL. So it's expecting something that looks like a URL. Is it required? Well, no, it's not required. And then I'm going to click save on that. Now the difference here is that when we added that column of data, you can actually see in this pre-visualization piece here. Now we haven't actually created any details at all, but it can be useful to actually add just a little bit of detail here. So I'm going to say, well, actually, I'm going to add a new row in here. In fact, you can see this additional rows, additional columns in here. And what we'd quite like to do is to include those. So let's keep that notes one in there. We won't be able to use the image at all. So I think we're quite limited in terms of what we can actually do here. So on the training summary here, I'm going to say, I'm going to call this one, it's going to be Power Platform SVG icons. Go onto that URL training there. In fact, just added it in already. I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to paste, I will paste the URL in that's relevant to this. Notice it's not quite big enough, but the idea is just to give us something to actually look at. And I'm going to say, well, actually, in the notes field, I'm going to say, well, actually, this is SVG icons relating to the Power Platform. And then that should be okay. So that's saved now. But what we actually wanted to do is we wanted to create an app. So I'm now going to click back on this, and I'm going to go to create. I'm going to move from there onto Dataverse. I'm going to select this. I need to choose a table. It'll be the training table. I'm going to click connect on that. And what it's going to do is it's going to build for us a 3-screen app. Now this app is suitable for a mobile phone, but what we're going to do with it is we're just going to flip it on its side so that we could use it on a computer slightly more easily. To do that, I need to go to File, then to Settings, then Display, and then click the orientation to landscape. Now when this gets put into effect, it may change how things look on the screen. As you can see, it doesn't quite work because some of the formulas here aren't really able to cope with the fact that this is changed in size. It's not a responsive app. So I'm just going to move these things around a little bit so that things actually work. And this is just a label that we have there. Move that around. I actually don't particularly need some of these things here, particularly the sort options, but we'll see there. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Go on to the search items, that's fine, make that bigger as well. And that gives us some options here. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add in insert, and we're going to put in icon. We'll go for if you just click in the add icon here, what you'll find is you get an icon, but what you can also do is you can click on this search option here. And I think if we actually look at Globe, we can kind of use that icon as giving us the ability to navigate to the internet. Now, what I'm going to do is going to change this from created on to URL, because we created a URL to do with the training. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that text there, this item there, and on select, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to launch, and we're going to do this item.url training. So essentially it's the current record. It will then navigate to that URL. Now, if there's no URL, then it won't navigate anywhere. So you could change the visibility if you wished. But if we actually look at the app now, we can actually select this and it will actually take us to the place that we needed to go to. What I can also do is I can actually have a look at the addition of an item. Now what you can see on the left hand side here is these are our 3 screens. So you probably find that in each case the screen will be incorrectly formatted. In fact, this one's not too bad. And then on this edit screen, it's also pretty good. So it was just that first screen we had an issue with. So I'm going to hit a plus on there. So I also notice here that we actually don't have very many fields. So what we're now going to do is going to add in those additional fields. So I selected on the form itself, click on edit fields here, add field, and then we're actually going to do the image and click on image training. I'm going to click add there. Now I'm not particularly doing it in any order. We've also got a notes field. Add that notes field in, pop that in there. And finally, we have a URL field as well. There's our URL training field. Now notice that this one, it's not particularly well laid out. I'm going to expand this out here and then go on to the form itself. And there's a concept of a wrap on here. So we'll just see if we can, if we can go 2 columns, then it might be slightly more efficient here. Now I'm less concerned with the created on. So I've just selected on there. I'm just going to click delete on that. And that maybe makes it slightly easier to read through. Now there's plenty more formatting that you could do in order to make this better. But now we actually have a form that would actually work. I won't go into too much detail in terms of what the various buttons do, but this form is properly connected to your data source. So what we can actually do here is we can select on there, and it says submit form, edit form 1, so it will actually work. So what I'm going to do now is going to training summary, and then go test training. And I'm just going to copy and paste some notes here. Pop that in there. So notice it's not very easy to read through at the moment. There's plenty that you could do there. And I'm also going to add an image. I'll just add any image from here. So I'm just going to pop an image in there, select open, and then I'm going to go onto a URL and then go www.bbc.co.uk. And then we'll save that. So now we can see that we actually have an image related to there. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't expecting the image to come in. I didn't realize that actually they'd already put an image field in for us. So one final touch here is that if you had a note that didn't actually have a URL associated with it, you could then change it so that the behavior was differently. So I'll say no URL note, test 1, 2, 3, and then click save on that. And what we see here is we can still see that option to go to a URL. And so what we can do is change it so that its visibility is so it's not possible to see it if there's no URL. So what I'm going to do is go to the visible property, and I'm going to say if is blank, and I'm going to say this item dot URL training, then I will say false, otherwise true. And false and true just means yes, you can see it, or no, you can't see it. And I noticed that on the formula at the front, I put is, so that needs to be if, and then I'm going to close the bracket. And the formula wasn't happy that it was actually case sensitive in this case. It's not always case sensitive, but it certainly is in the case of this formula here. So what we can see now is that where there's no URL, we can't see anything. And this is an app that would work on your phone. It might not look very nice, but it certainly would be useful, and it's kind of helpful to be able to see an image associated with it because it kind of connects with your mind. You can also see that the search facility, we can test that one out. It actually says test training, and I noticed that it says no URL, no. And the reason why it can see that, I think, is that we also have in here, and I think we've got a notes field. Notes. Check the notes field there. Yeah, and it says test 1, 2, 3. So in fact, when it's actually looking across the way in which the filtering is working on this search, it's actually looking across more than one field. So it's a little bit clever. In fact, you can see it in this formula here. It's a little bit wordy, but it indicates that it's the notes field and the training summary field based on what is showing in this particular box here. What we can now do is we can now go to File, then we say Demo Training, and we can select Save on that. Now the first time we make the save, we actually don't get the option to publish it because it's saved and published at the same time. I'm just going to look at the versions here. And I'm going to show you that actually what happens is if we go onto here and then we made a small change, it could be anything, just move this plus around here and then went to File and then Save. What we'll see is you've got an option to publish this, because actually if I refresh this, what you'll see is there are two versions now. One which is the live version, one which is version 2. So if I actually hit publish on this, and then say publish this version, and then go back on to reviewing this and hit the refresh, what we'll see is that version 2 is now the published version. If I want to actually want to play this and get the URL for it, the easiest way of doing it is to actually go on to sharing it. I'm going to select cancel on that, and what you can see is you've got a web link there to the app. So I'm going to copy that web link and hit the plus and then select enter. So it's now going to play the app in the way in which we would expect it. And notice there's a warning at the top to indicate that it's in a developer environment. So yes, you can use it, but just be aware it's just for development and test. Now, before I finish up here, when I was starting to do the demos, I did notice that we actually had no ability to edit these items, and that's a really useful thing to be able to do. So you can actually see on the edit screen here, we actually have the ability to edit things, but we actually have no way of getting from the initial screen to the edit screen unless we're actually in the process of creating a new item. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go and onto the gallery. I'm going to go and do an icon, and then I'm going to go and look for a right icon here. I'm going to move across, pop it up there. You can see it's actually a little bit of an odd size there, and I'm actually going to go onto this additional icon, which is our globe icon. Make that one a little bit smaller, perhaps get the image and move that across a little bit. That's a little bit nicer, and then sort of drop these in. But the key thing here is that what happens when we actually select on this, and what we're actually going to do is on the select, we're going to go to navigate, where we're going to navigate to edit screen 1. And I'm just going to close the brackets. So what that's going to do is going to take us there. So I will select on there. I'm just going to move back on that. I'll click OK. I'll click on that. I'm going to click the X on there. Now it may be that the syntax is correct already for us to navigate between these. I think it might well be. Yeah, in fact, that's all we would need to do. We just need to put that navigation in and we're okay. And the reason why that works is because if you actually go onto there and you actually look at the item, if I look at the item, it's browse gallery 1.selected. So it's the selection that we already made when we moved from one to the other. And that's why we can see it correctly. So I'm going to go onto this test training and say edited, and then kind of select the tick icon there, and you can see test training edited has been altered, and that really gives you an app that you can make use of. Wow, everyone, we created a one-click Dataverse app to help us with our training needs. The first thing that we did was we took a little look at the training app. We created a developer account. Now, in our case, we didn't need to create a Dataverse database, but you're going to know if you need to create one, because when you move onto the tables, it may invite you to create a Dataverse database. You may or may not need to do that. And finally, we then went on and we created the app, and we did some little touches in there to make it better for us in the future. So we actually switched it around onto its into a landscape format, and we moved the columns around a little bit as well. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and do tune in for new lessons in the future. Thanks.